being in the Marine Corps is like being in an unfaithful marriage. Because Semper Fidelis is a one-way street. You're faithful to it. It's not necessarily faithful to you. So my name is Randall Parks. I served 20 years in the Marine Corps, and I retired as a first sergeant or sergeant major select.
Nice. What years did you serve?
I joined July of 2001, and I retired basically July of 2021.
Nice. What job did you sign up for? And then...
I was an infantryman when I first came in. I was a anti-tank assaultman when I first came in, and my 4-year mark, I transitioned to be a parachute rigger, working with parachutes. Yeah, so I was born in Hemet, California, which is like the cradle of civilization. I kind of lived all up and down, SoCal, growing up. I spent a little bit of time in Texas when I was a kid, but I kind of grew up, typical enlisted background. I came from a broken home. My parents got divorced real young. My mom never graduated high school. My dad joined the Navy not too long after I was born. And we kind of moved around a lot, just because he, trying to find work and, have a steady life. So, I wasn't poor growing up in the sense that, I never went hungry. I always had clothes on my back, but I mean, just as an example, like when I lived in Texas, we lived in this like 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom place, no AC, concrete floors, like tile in the bathroom and the kitchen, because legally they had to have tile in the wet spaces, and, I kind of knew from like a young age that I didn't want that, like growing up, like I wanted more, like out of life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't spend, I wasn't in the same school for more than 2 years in a row.
Wow.
So I never had any like stability, continuity with my childhood. In fact, I didn't have any stability until I moved in with my grandparents my sophomore through senior year. And luckily I did, because that was kind of like my influential years, developing into a man, I spent with my grandparents. So stable household, the whole nine. So it
Was that in Texas?
No, that was here in California. I went to Paris High School, which is another, cradle of civilization. Yeah, it's funny. I lived out in San Diego now, and they're like, "Oh, where'd you go to high school?" And I'm like, "I went to Paris High School," and they're like,
It's a little rough out there.
"Yeah, it's a little rough." And I didn't realize that when I was in high school. I didn't realize how rough it was. I kind of stuck to myself in the sense that I hung out with a certain group of friends that were, trying to better themselves, and I played varsity sports, so I had like a lot to lose, so I didn't jack around too much, in high school. My grandparents were real Christian people, so I didn't want to disappoint them.
So you didn't get in any trouble?
Not really, just your standard stupid, teenage crap.
Yeah.
But nothing else.
Right on. So what inspired you to go into the Marines?
I'm a kid of the 80s, man. Like, I grew up watching war movies and action flicks, like I loved watching, Arnold Schwarzenegger take on the Predator. I loved action flicks like Point Break or Bodie and Johnny Utah, jumping out of planes and surfing, so I just grew up. I wanted to be like a man of action and adventure, when I grew up. So those were like my influences, like my dad was in the Navy, my aunts and uncles, they were in the Navy. But I remember I went to my grandma's funeral, my great grandmother's funeral, like I was like 6 or 7. I see this guy walk in his dress blues, and I didn't know what dress blues were at the time. And I was like, "Dad, what's that guy?" He's like, "Oh, he's a Marine. He's your uncle." I'm like, "Oh, man, he looks fucking cool." Like I want to be that. And of course, my dad being a sailor. He's like, no, don't you ever say that again. You'll never join the Marine Corps. All they do is eat on ship, and they just pump steel, and they're brainwashed, jarheads. I'm like, yeah, skill sounds pretty good. So I heard a couple of your other interviews where the guys talked about like joining the military. So, like in high school, I knew I wanted to go towards the Marine Corps just, because they had the hardest boot camp, and those were all kind of the things that I heard at the time. But I wanted to explore my options, right? Like I talked to the Navy, I talked to the Air Force. Air Force was not interested at all. I talked to the Army, and the Army was going to give me like my choice of duty station, $15,000 signing bonus, like my choice of my actual MOS.
Wow.
Like they were going to lay it out, and I went to my Marine recruiter, thinking that like, oh man, I'm going to make a deal. That's how naive I was, like nobody makes a deal with the Marine Corps, dude. So, I went to him and I'm like, hey, the Army's going to offer me this, and that, and this, and that. He like slid over his white barracks cover, and he's like, he pointed to the eagle of an anchor. And he's like, look, man, this is all I can give you. This eagle of an anchor right here. If you don't want that, then get the fuck out of here. And I was like, all right, well, where do I sign?
Wow.
So boot camp was really interesting, because I joined in July of 2001, to, go on the booze cruise. That's what the Marine Corps was doing at the time. They were going live ports and like seeing the world and shit.
Yeah.
And then I remember we were on the shooting circles, like snapping in, learning how to shoot, learning all of our marksmanship stuff towards the end of boot camp when September 11th happened. I remember, the drill instructor came up to talk to the PMI, and I could see like there was like a concerned look on their faces. And after they talked for a minute, my drill instructor, my green belt drill instructor, who was like the mean one, right? He pulls us in, and we'd never heard his like real voice before. And he's like, hey, bring it in. And we're like, hang it in. Like, what's this guy talking about? And I could tell there was like something wrong. Like there was something happening. And he like pulled his campaign cover off so we could see his like face. And he's like, hey, look, the United States is under attack in New York and at the Pentagon. We don't know what yet. We don't know how. But you guys might want to pay attention to what you're learning here today, because you're probably going to use it again in the future. And we were like, holy shit. Like we were thinking like, Pearl Harbor type like scenario. We weren't thinking like terrorist attack or anything like that. So later in the night, the company commander had brought, all of us in platoon at a time to show us like VHS recordings of what was going on.
Fun.
And then, just your trajectory of what you thought you were going to be doing, completely changed. And it did, for the next 20 years, like my whole career track was, 4 combat deployments, preparing to go on deployment, coming back, going on the next deployment.
When that happened, did they change boot camp in any way, or did it continue to roll as it was supposed to be?
Yeah, so the scuttlebutt, right? Like the rumor mill was flying that boot camp was going to get cut short.
Yeah.
We were going to go to SOI for like 3 weeks, and then it was game on. And all the surrounding atmospheric supported that. So we're like hiking up and down the hills, right? On Pendleton, doing our conditioning hikes. And we look out in the ocean right there, off of Pendleton, off the 5. And it's just ships, like 20, 30 ships everywhere. Helicopters, day and night. You could hear and see the hovercraft back and forth all night, all day and night. And then one day we went on a hike and they were gone. And we were like, oh, shit. Like, shit just got real, real quick. And, I joined, like, knowing that at some point that could be a possibility. But now it was the reality. And I was down. I was down for it. From security forces, I ended up lap moving, and I went to 1st Recon.
Oh,
So as a parachute rigger.
oh, really?
Yeah. So, got there. and in September of 2005, we deployed to Fallujah, Iraq. And because of my, infantry background, I got selected to be the platoon sergeant for the personal security detachment for the sergeant major and the battalion commander.
And
So, I thought, by then, I thought we were going to be in like legit like combat when we got there, just because everything I'd seen leading up to that point. Well, after Phantom Fury, like we killed all the dumb ones, so all that was left was like a skeleton crew of mujahideen. And their main tactic was like IEDs and sniper fire. So that's really all we encountered that whole deployment, was just driving around, and getting blown up. I was only there for a couple years. And then when MARSOC stood up, I ended up going over there in 2006.
was that who your next deployment was with?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did 2 deployments at MARSOC to Afghanistan. So it's actually a funny story. So, I was at sergeant's course, and I came back by the battalion just to see what's going on at 1st Recon. And my admin chief's like, "Hey, dude, you got orders, man." And I'm like, "Where am I going?" He's like, "You're going to Albuquerque, New Mexico for I&I duty." I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck is that, dude? I don't want to do that." So I got down to my shop, and I was bitching about it. One of my buddies was like, "Hey, dude, like I've done 3 back-to-back combat deployments. Like I'm ready for a break. I'll take those orders." And he's like, "Actually, the monitors, they're here on Pendleton. Let's just go talk to them." So we rolled over there, and we finally get up to the monitor, and he's like, "Who are you? What's your social?" "You, social." He's like, pulls it up. And he's like, "All right, so let me get this straight. You don't want to go to Albuquerque?" I'm like, "No." He does. "I want to stay and deploy." I'm like, I'm not burnt out yet. And he's like, "All right, cool. You're taking his orders." It was like as easy as updating your like Facebook status.
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, where do you want to go?" I'm like, "I just want to deploy, man. Like, and I want to stay. I'd prefer to stay here on the West Coast." He's like, "You want to go to MARSOC?" I'm like, what's MARSOC?" I had no idea, because Dat 1 had just disbanded, and MARSOC hadn't really like came about yet. He's like, "It's the Marine Special Operations Command. They need people, and do you want to go? And it's here on Pendleton." I'm like, "Can I deploy there?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Sign me up."
Nice.
So that's how it happened, man. We fucking just got me orders, and in November, I checked into what was then 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion, what is now 1st Raider Battalion.
And what was that like, checking into that unit like that? Did you have to go through any? Did you have to do like the selection process or any?
None of that existed at that time. So like there was a lot of guys that I deployed with at 1st Recon, all the 321s and even all the support people, MARSOC just freaking took everybody. So they really raped like the recon community of all of like their people.
Yeah.
So that was really the initial shot over to MARSOC, where they just cut people orders. So they the schoolhouse for MARSOC wasn't even a thing. I hadn't even been invented yet.
Wow.
So basically the barrier to entry at the time was either you came over as an enabler like me, or you came over like you were a recon guy and went through BRC, and then you came over to MARSOC.
Wow. Yeah. So talk to me about that. What was your time like with MARSOC?
Looking back on it, like it really provided me a lot of opportunities. And that's kind of the thing I'd like to highlight during this podcast is taking advantage of opportunities. Things that just come your way, and you just raise your hand and say, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I feel like a lot of that started with those orders to MARSOC. Like when the guy was like, "Hey, you want to go here?" I'm like, "Yeah, sign me up."
Yeah.
And that's all I did throughout the whole rest of my career, was just raise my hand and just say, "Yeah, I'll do it." So my first combat deployment there was with Marine Special Operations Company Bravo. We like to call ourselves Season 1 because we were the first company to go out the door. Yeah. And that happened just the same way as I got over to MARSOC. As Master Sergeant walked in, he's like, "Hey, Sergeant so-and-so can't go on this deployment. His wife's having pregnancy complications. Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, where Where are they going? He's like, I don't, they're probably going to Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm like, all right, yeah, sweet. When do they go? He's like, they deploy in 90 days. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So me and my buddy Lloyd, we were the two riggers that went over with that company. And of course, you know, they didn't need us for fucking packing parachutes or jumping out of planes. None of that crap was happening. But once again, you know, because of my infantry background, when we got into Afghanistan, they made me a machine gunner on a gun truck. And these gun trucks, they called them GMVs. And dude, they were just decked out to the nines. Like I had, you know, I was in the main turret with a 240. I had an M79 blooper, you know, I could shoot 40 mics and smokes out of it. I had my M4, I had my 45, and then we had two 240s on the back.
Oh, shit.
So, dude, we're just rolling, and every vehicle's like that. You know, one vehicle's got like a Mark 18, the other one's got 50 cal, but they've all got like some, you know, guys got, you know, a scissor mount on the back with a Barrett 50 cal on it. Like, it was the deployment that kept me in the Marine Corps, because I was going to get out after that. Because my first deployment was just driving around getting blown up, getting shot at by sniper fire, you know. This deployment was just every day, dude, was like gunfight.
Really?
And, you know, I mean, we came out on top because the experience of the dudes in MSOC Bravo was just phenomenal. Like, I was on my second combat deployment. The average dude in that company was on their like third or fourth combat deployment. So when we got into a gunfight, like, it wasn't even fair. Like, we had like just handfuls of freaking school trained snipers, advanced snipers, JTACs. I mean, it was crazy. Wow. And just the most solid dudes, like all these dudes that were at First Force, when First Force was like the coup de grace of the Marine Corps. Those are all the guys that I deployed with. Wow. And even to this day, like, everyone still talks about that deployment.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Just from, you know, guys cutting dudes in half with freaking Barrett 50 cal to dudes chopping warheads on foreheads.
Ooh.
You know, when we deployed in that company, you know, we attached to the Special Operations Task Force, the Army Special Operations Task Force West. And, you know, the Army SF community, like, they didn't know really what to do with us. So we just went down to this FOB called FOB Price in the green zone and outside of Goresh, Afghanistan. And they didn't really have a mission for us. So, you know, we went down there and we just started planning CRPs, combat reconnaissance patrols through bad guy areas. Like, you know, there were areas that the SF guys that we were partnered with there, they're like, hey, don't go in that area. I'm like, okay, well, now we're going in that area. Like, don't tell us where we're going to go and not go, right?
Yeah.
So this one particular time we went and we go up on top of this hill and we're just waiting, right? We got the ICOM chatter going that they're gonna start launching mortars at us and this and that. So they start launching mortars on top of us. And, you know, this was not like Iraq where they just launch one and they roll out. These dudes were good, man. Like, I got to give it to the Taliban. Like, they were excellent mortarmen.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they start, and they're, you know, first round effect, right? They're hitting all around us. And we start exfilling off the top of this hill. And, you know, the first round that goes, you hear it, tonk. You're like, oh, shit. Like, where is that going to land? You know, we had a sniper position. My buddy Daryl was on a sniper position, like 500 meters away. And it hit like 15 feet behind them. They were all in the prone, so they were all good. And they get up and they just start sprinting as fast as they could. And as soon as they stand up, you hear the next one, tonk. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, where's that one going to land? Because I saw where the first one landed. And when it hit right where they were laying.
Wow.
So if they hadn't moved and displaced, they would have all been smoked.
Wow.
So we start moving off the hill. Everyone's run back into their vehicles. And of course my vehicle is the last vehicle to leave the hill out of because we roll deep, dude, like 15 gun trucks deep with all that firepower, And I'm like, I keep hearing the mortars, boom, boom, and they're impacting. And as we're rolling 5 miles an hour, dude, these rounds are falling behind our truck. And I'm yelling at the driver, my buddy Dan. I'm like, Dan, dude, you think you might want to step on it, man? These fucking rounds are coming in right on our heels, And this dude, Borja, got left. Marvin Borja got left by his gun truck. So we thought, sprinting. Jumps on the back of our truck, and a round hits. Boom! Feet behind our truck. Knocks us all over the place inside the truck. And I'm like, oh, dude, Borja's done, man. There's no way. And the guys in the back, there were 2 other guys in the back. I'm like, there's no way those guys got fucked up. The dust kind of clears. I come up over the top of the turret, and I'm like, hey, he has good? Borja's good. He's like, yeah, man, I'm good. Another guy's like, yeah, I'm good. And then Pittman, he didn't say anything. He's holding his hand, And he's looking down. He's looking around. I'm like, Pittman, dude, you good? He didn't say anything. I'm like, move your fucking hand. He moves his hand. It's psh, psh. He had through and through a piece of shrapnel on his arm, hit his artery. He was fucking squirting everywhere. And I was like, bah. I freaked out. I'm trying to scramble to get my tourniquet off. And before I could get over the turret, Borja, dude, just man of action adventure himself, dude. He pulls that thing off, throws it on him, cranks it down, bleeding stops. We get off the hill, mortars stop, finally. We had Chief Dombrowski, who's a special amphibious reconnaissance corpsman in our truck, gets out, freaking Johnny on the spot, cuts up his camis, packs his wound, gives him a morphine lollipop. He's fucking high as giraffe pussy, just... and the helicopter comes in, picks him up, and he rolls out. And at the time, the higher ups were on the hood of my vehicle trying to figure out what are we gonna do now. And the company commander at the time, he was like, "Hey, let's just cut our losses and roll back to the FOB. We already got a guy wounded. It's a close call. Let's roll out." And this is why I fucking stayed in. One of the platoon commanders, Captain Seeley at the time, he was like, no, fuck that. He's like, they wounded one of our guys. They almost wounded more of our guys. We're going to go back in there and we're going to fuck these dudes up. I was like, hell yeah. And I was all smiling, ear to ear, until I figured out that I was one of the vehicles that had to go back up on the hill as bait to bait the Taliban to come back out and fight us. Meanwhile, everyone else was pushing into the green zone. And they were going to advance on foot, kind of clear through this area while we were up on the hill providing, a base of fire with machine guns and everything. So yeah, I wasn't pumped to go back up on the hill. So of course we go back up on that hill. Guys are pushing through down in the little wadis and stuff, and punk, more mortar rounds coming. And, man, the thing that I fucking hate the most about the mortar rounds is that I just kept imagining it, hitting me in the helmet. That, I couldn't get that out of my head. And, so they start hitting near us. And, Gunny Daniel, he was the ops chief. He came up with this idea, hey, let's just split. We had 4 or 5 vehicles. Let's split in 2 different directions. That way they got to choose. You got to choose who you're going to engage. And then we can still provide a base of fire and fire support from up top. So up top we had snipers, machine guns, JTACs. JTACs are double fisting fucking, the comms and shit. So when we moved, I didn't realize this. I was assuming that they were just shooting at us from the front, right? But they were actually shooting at us from the side. They were spotting from the front. They were shooting at us from the side. So when we moved, we got so close to them that they would have had to angle their tube straight up and down to hit us. So they displaced. I didn't know that at the time. So, you know, I'm set up on this little outcropping looking over on an elevated position. I got my binos out like a good machine gunner, you know, and I'm scanning the area. And I see these dudes in this trench. And, you know, in these kinds of situations, like, you think about like weird ass shit, and time slows like way down for whatever reason. And I kept thinking back, like when I was in SOI and they kept talking about like the machine gunner's wet dream, right? Like seeing a group of troops in the open and you're a machine gunner. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. So I like drop my binos, immediately get on. I had butterfly grips on my 240, and I just lay down the hate on these dudes. They wounded one of our guys, and you know they were been harassing us all day, and they were trying to kill us. And I just laid down the hate. I put like our drum's like 1,000 rounds. I put 1,000 rounds on these dudes. Wow. So I'm like engaging them. And then they're in a little bit of defilade, you know, like up to their waist. So they drop down, and I'm still hitting them. And I see this guy, he like gets out, for whatever reason, he gets out of the trench and runs along the side. I remember thinking to myself, like, what are you doing? And I stitch him up, and he falls in. And then about before I knew it, like my rounds had ran out, but my barrel was like on fire, dude. It was like red hot. So I changed the barrel out, put a new barrel on, and I just put a few hundred rounds more on them until they all stopped moving. So regardless of what Daryl says, I know you're going to watch this. I smoked those guys. And, you know, I never felt bad about it. I don't think I ever will. And it was a huge win to get that mortar team, because they're hard to get. They're hard to They don't compromise themselves very often. Yeah. And they're well trained. And obviously they were very good at their craft. But
sounds like they were pretty fucking accurate.
Dude, like, I think they were in a declined position. We were in an elevated position. So shooting mortars at us from that angle, and they were from the side being spotted from the front. I mean, they were definitely good. But I felt like and then, you know, the guys that were clearing through, they were murking dudes left and right. This guy, John Brown, this dude's like, they called him Red Claw, you know. He was just like murdering these Taliban dudes left and right. And it was a win, man. Like it was a good win. Yeah. From my first deployment, like going around just getting blown up and harassed by sniper fire, to actually getting some fucking payback for the things that happened on 9/11. You know, that day, that was a huge win. So that firefight in particular, like, stands out in my mind. Yeah. You know, we sent a couple guys, you know, home, obviously, with some holes in them. We didn't lose anybody.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, man, like, it was just the best deployment. Like, and the worst part was that we all knew it. Like, we all knew that this was as good as it fucking gets. I never had a deployment like that again.
Yeah. Wow. So did you do any other assignments besides MARSOC?
Yeah. So I did 5 years at MARSOC. They stabilized us for 5 years to kind of get the command off the ground. And, you know, I came back from that deployment and I wanted to go to BRC, so I could have that as like a secondary and continue to deploy and things like that. And my master sergeant at the time, he was like, no, man, I'm not losing you for 3 months to go do that. I'm like, well, if you're not going to let me do that, then I'm going to go do something for my career. Because at that point I was in. Like, I was down. Let's do this. But I knew I needed to do something to kind of stand out and to continue to get promoted and stuff. So, and you know, honestly, I did 3 combat deployments in 4 years. So I was a little like burnt out.
Wow.
So my master plan was I wanted to go on MSG duty, but we had just bought a house in Temecula and we wanted to stay in our house. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go be a drill instructor then. So I put in my package to go be a drill instructor, and it didn't necessarily work out because I got orders to fucking Parris Island, South Carolina. Oh. So I ended up leaving anyway.
Bah.
And I remember talking to the monitor when he came to Pendleton, because my package hadn't been approved yet, and he was the drill instructor monitor, and he was like, yeah, so I see your package right here. You're highly qualified. Your staff NCO, we're looking for staff NCOs to come on the depot. Yeah, so I'll give you orders for January. Is that good? I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, for PI. I'm like, what does PI mean? Because I was a San Diego recruit, dude. He's like, Paris Island. I'm like, what? I was like, nah, dude. Like, I don't want to go to Paris Island. I'm not trying to go to South Carolina. And he's like, well, you want to be a drill center, do you? And I'm like, not really that bad. And he's like, well, that's what I got for you. So take it or leave it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So I went to South Carolina.
Wow. So you went. Yeah. What was it like, man, being a drill instructor over there?
Dude, I'd been through a lot of hard schools and hard deployments up to that point, but honestly, it was probably the hardest thing that I've done in my Marine Corps career.
Really?
Because it's 3 years of just grinding. I did have a break. I worked at the pool my second year, so I had that was like my only break.
Nice.
But yeah, my first year, I mean, you're a greenbelt drill instructor, you're running everywhere you go, you're freaking slaying recruits. I remember this one story. When I was a greenbelt drill instructor, I was on my third cycle, so I was pretty seasoned as a drill instructor, so I knew like how to get into the psyche, of a disgusting recruit, And, I honestly, I had a disdain for them, at a certain point. And I wanted to train them hard because I knew this is 2011, 2012, like they're going to Afghanistan in 6 months. So I knew that I needed to give them all I had, But, everyone loves a good boot camp story. So, I'll give you a good one. So I Christmas Day, we were like a week or 2 weeks into the cycle. I had sent my family home because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to provide them with, the time that they deserved for Christmas. So they might as well be with family at home. So I was, on Paris Island by myself. But the rest of my drill instructors on my team, they all had family and everything. So I was like, hey, guys, look, I'll do Christmas Eve and Christmas morning so you guys can have that time with your family. And, yeah. So my senior drill instructor was like, yeah, dude, just come in the evening after the kids go to bed, and then when they wake up in the morning, you'll be there. I'm like, all right, cool. So, same routine every morning, right? Lights come on, they get online, they count off. And the last recruit is like, 71, last recruit, Merry Christmas, sir. And they all scream Merry Christmas. And, I'm a greenbelt drill instructor. Like, you're not going to say Merry Christmas to me. I'm like, oh, it's Merry Christmas, is it? Well, ho fucking ho. All you dump your foot lockers right now. And then I dump all their crap and chicken shit everywhere. I'm having them bring their 2 sheets and a blanket online, put it back, bring it online. I got kids. I got all kinds of disarray going on. I got kids getting slayed on the quarterdeck behind me. Like I said, I was a seasoned drill instructor at this point. So I was like a freaking orchestra conductor up there, just, of pain and suffering. I got kids over here crying and freaking out. I got kids getting slayed and sweating over here. And then we clean up the house. And, I had like an hour and a half in the morning before morning chow. So that's like the golden hour for a greenbelt drill instructor of playtime. Right. So I get them all outside. We start marching to chow. They do something to piss me off. And we still got like an hour until chow. So I put them back in the house, put them back all online, put all their stuff away, strip them back down into PT gear, put them back in the rack, turn the lights off, and then turn them back on and we start all over again. So, I got kids getting slayed over here. I got disarray going on in the freaking squad bay. And they're just like, ah, and it's Christmas morning, And, this is the kinds of things you would do as a drill instructor to like entertain yourself, And then, I'll march them to chow. We clean the house back up. And of course, at this point, they don't want to freaking piss me off any further, So they made a mistake by saying Merry Christmas, you know? And, you know, so they clean the house real nice, you know, and it's like Fabuloso in there and shit. So we go to chow, come back, and they go to church. And the night before my senior drill instructor left, he was like, hey, I told the recruits that I'll let them watch a movie for Christmas. So in the morning, you need to let them watch the movie. I'm like, dude, fuck that. I'm a green belt drill instructor. They're not watching it. Plus, you know, my fellow green belts would make fun of me and shit, loving on the recruits, you know, letting them watch a movie. He's like, no, you're going to let them watch it. I said, make it happen. I'm like, all right, roger that. So bring them back, you know, they'll start trickling back in from fucking church. And you know, we wheel out the, you know, the TV on the cart, you know, like kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, the senior drill instructor said you're going to watch a movie. Here, turn it on, guy. And I threw the remote at him. I'm like, watch it. And I go in duty and slam the door like I'm all pissed off, you know. And I give him about 5 minutes. Let him watch it. Let him get all comfortable here. And then I slam the door open, walk out. God, give me that. And I snatch the friggin' remote and I put it on mute. And they're like looking at me like, how is he doing? I'm like, hey, senior drill instructor said you could watch him. He didn't say anything about you hearing it. So they just sat there for the next 2 hours watching Enemy at the Gates. You know, just all sad as fuck, you know, like, God damn it. Like, they're so pissed.
Oh, man.
And Senior Drill Instructor comes back in, you know, like he was supposed to, and relieve me so I can go get some dinner and just chill out. And he's like, hey, man, what are they doing out there? I'm just standing, like, watching a movie. I'm like, oh, yeah, they're out there watching a movie, like you said. He's like, well, I don't hear anything. I'm like, well, you didn't say to let him hear it. You said to let him watch it. He's like, God damn it. He's like, get out of here. I'm like, all right, see you later. Merry Christmas.
Oh, man, they're going to remember that Christmas forever.
Forever.
Wow.
You know, I knew that as a drill instructor that I wanted to, like, do certain things that they would, like, remember as, like, an old man.
Yeah.
Because you don't ever forget your time
Oh,
as a recruit.
I guarantee they woke up thinking, this is going to be a setup. It's Christmas, you know? Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So, so did you just do one stint of being a drill instructor? Or?
Yeah. So I did my 1 year on the front end where I was a green belt. Went to the pool for a year. I ended up getting selected for gunny. So I ended up going back to a different company because they had room for me as a gunny because I couldn't go back to a hotel because they didn't have any gunnies. So I wouldn't work for a staff sergeant. So I went back as a senior drill instructor. And, I did 1 cycle as a senior, and then I did 2 cycles as a chief drill instructor. And then after that, I went to the 2nd Recon to be the paraloft chief there. And then I got selected for first sergeant. And then I just stayed at 2nd Recon and went up to Bravo Company to be the first sergeant up there.
Nice.
I finished up my career on the recruit depot in San Diego. I was in Djibouti, Africa on deployment, and I get a phone call from my sergeant major, and he's like, hey, good news, you're going back to California. I'm like, okay, where? He's like, in the southern part. I'm like, all right, motherfucker, like, don't fuck with me. Like, where am I going? Am I going to 29 Palms or some stupid crap like that? He's like, no, man, you're going to go back to the depot. I'm like, God damn it. Like, I don't want to go back to the depot. Like, so I ended up, talking to the monitor. He's like, hey, either take these orders or I'll find somewhere else for you to go, which is code for you to send me to some place, some crappy ass place.
Right.
So I took the orders. I checked in the India company, and, being a first sergeant on the recruit depot is awesome. Like, cause you can really just do whatever the hell you want. Like, and within reason, obviously, but so I would just do like wazoo ass shit. Cause I had to entertain myself and I needed to have fun with it. So I do this thing like every cycle. We do the initial PFT before they go up north, for the follow-on phases. And, the drill instructors would get up there to do pull-ups and demonstrate the pull-ups. And after they'd done with their demonstration, I would get up in front of the whole company. I'd be like, all right, listen up. All right, so check it out. First sergeant's got a deal for you. I'm going to get up here and do some pull-ups. Any of you tie me in pull-ups, I'll give you a 5-minute phone call with my personal phone. if you beat me, I'll give you a 15-minute FaceTime.
Wow.
Mom, Dad, Grandma, Susie, don't care.
Wow.
And no, so they're all like, yes, sir. You know, they're all excited. And for context, for people that don't know, like the Marine Corps or boot camp, like you don't get a cell phone in boot camp. Like my drill instructors had to teach these kids how to write letters. They didn't even know how to write a letter.
Wow.
You know, so, and you know, these kids nowadays, they're married to these freaking devices. So it's really like a hard thing for them to detach from for 3 months, not having a phone. So they were all pumped. So I turn around and I get up and I start doing pull-ups. I get to 10, you know, I could still sense, you know, some hope. And through the recruits, I get to 15, I get to 20, 23, and 23 is the max, you know, that you have to do for 100% for the PFT. And then I can start feeling it. I can start feeling the discontent. And, you know, because all these kids, you know, not many of them do 23 to begin with. And I get to 25, and I get to 30, and I can just feel like from the majority of them, all hope is lost. I get to 35, and I can usually do about 40 to 45 pull-ups was like my max.
Holy fuck.
And I get down, and these kids are just defeated. Like,
oh, man.
And I just laugh and walk off. Because for a minute, they had like this glimmer of hope.
Oh, wow.
And then it just crushed them. So even as a first sergeant, I still was like a green belt at heart, but I just did it in a funny, with a smile on my face kind of way. And you know, I think those are things that they won't ever forget.
Well, it sounds like you were pretty good at fucking taking their souls.
Which is hilarious because like I'm a surfer. That's not my personality, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a surfer dude from San Diego, you know,
Yeah.
like being like that evil, conniving, you know, guy. But it was all in good fun, you know. I'm sure they laugh about it now, thinking back. But I had one kid throughout all 6 cycles tie me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. I did 40 or something like that. He did 40. And I was blasting him when he was trying to get 41. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, you better not beat me, you disgusting thing. And I was man of my word. I gave him this 5-minute phone call.
Wow, nice. Well, it's good for their character.
Yeah.
You know? So talk to me about transitioning out after 20 years.
So I finished my bachelor's. I discovered this program at USC at the Marshall School of Business called the MBV program, the Master in Business for Veterans program. And it was set up and built to transition you from the military and give you like the language of business and thrust you into the business world. And the focus really is like entrepreneurship, but you could really get out of that program and do anything. And it's a year-long program. So at like my 19-year mark, or 18-and-a-half-year mark, I applied for the program. And lo and behold, you know, I got accepted. The guy that graduated from Paris High School, whose mom didn't even graduate, got into USC. Like, I was floored, man.
Nice.
And I felt like I had like a new lease on life, and that I had kind of, you never really made it, but I'd made it. Mm-hmm. So I started that program in July at like my 19-year mark. And in 19 and a half years, I got selected for Sergeant Major. Kind of like my long-term Marine Corps goal was to pick up B9. And I was pumped. I was like, yeah, dude, I got selected for Sergeant Major. I'm in 19 and a half years. And I'd gotten orders to Cobras and Hueys. I was like, yeah, dude, like they're going to deploy soon. I was pumped. And I called the monitor back because I needed to get there sooner than he had me orders for. Because the other guy was leaving. And he was like, oh, yeah, so, by the way, I forgot. I gave those orders to somebody else. And you're going to have you penciled in for MWSS 372. I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is. I mean, what is that? And he explained it to me, and he's like, hey, look, man, I messed this up. Like, give me a call back in like 2 weeks. I'll make it right for you. Like, I'll just keep you in this slot for now, but I'll make it right. I'm like, all right, crisis averted. Fine. So I'm like, well, I guess it didn't happen to me. So I call him back in 2 weeks. And I was prepared for this conversation. He was not prepared for this conversation. And I told him, I was like, hey man, this is, First Round Parks. I'm the guy that you gave orders to MWSS. What else do you have for me? He said, give me a call back. And he's like, yeah, man, look, it's needs of the Marine Corps. Like, this is where I need you. This is where you're going to go. And either you take these orders, or you can get out. I'm like, well, this is a different tone than 2 weeks ago. I was like, well, you told me that you would make it right. This isn't making it right. And he's like, look, man, you're a selected sergeant major. You're going to go where I tell you to go. Wow. You should just be grateful that I'm leaving you on the West Coast. I'm like, well, see, that's where you're wrong. I am not going to just take those orders. You're going to give me what I want or I'm done. And he's like, well, what makes you think you're so fucking special? You're not going to just get what you want. I was like, look, I don't want much. I just want to go to Pendleton or Miramar, and I want to go to a unit that has more hunters and gatherers in it. I want to deploy. I want to do Marine shit. And he's like, well, that's not going to happen. What makes you think you have this kind of leverage? And I'm like, well, check it out, Sergeant Major. I'm at 19 and a half years, so you can't make me do anything. I can get out in 6 months. My medical's already done. I'm already in the retirement location that I want to be in. And I'm midway through a master's program at one of the top business schools in the country. So either you give me what I want or I'm going to go triple my income. And he was like, submit your Appendix J, which is your retirement papers, your official retirement papers. I'm like, it'll be in your inbox in 5 minutes. Well, I already had it prepped. I was just like, click. And then that was it. But I was prepared to make that decision. And I tell guys this all the time, like, being in the Marine Corps is like being in an unfaithful marriage. Because Semper Fidelis is a one-way street. You're faithful to it. It's not necessarily faithful to you, unless your end and their ends meet.
Right.
And you need to prepare to get out. Whether you're doing 4 years, 20 years, or 30 years, you need to constantly be preparing for the eventuality that you are going to have to get out. Either the Marine Corps is done with you and they need to throw you away, or it's just your time and you and the Marine Corps and your family don't see eye to eye anymore.
Yeah.
So I felt like my transition was smooth because I went to medical, once I wasn't on jump and dive status anymore. I got my education. I did industry discovery. I went out and kind of looked at the different, things out there that I could do. And when it came time for me to make that decision at 19 and a half years, I was able to make it. And my transition was so smooth that literally on my day of my retirement, when I delivered my retirement speech, the only worry in my mind was, what am I going to do with my hair? Am I going to do the side part? Am I going to slick it back? Am I going to grow it out like Bodhi status?
Yeah.
I don't know. And honestly, I still don't know. I don't know what I'm...
It looks nice, man.
Yeah,
nice and thick. So it sounds like you set yourself up pretty good, career-wise, job-wise. You prepared yourself for that. I'm just curious, being part of that warrior culture for 20 years, especially with everything that you did, recon, MARSOC, combat, all the shit that you got into. Even though you prepared yourself career-wise, financially, and all that, you got your family set up. Did any of that affect you, like transitioning into the civilian life, like in any mental aspect at all?
Yeah. Being an enabler with the Recon and Marsok guys, I was around these guys that just had a different outlook on life. It was all about like just maxing it out. Like, what's the standard? I need to max it out. And being around that culture like rubbed off on me. Like, and I needed that. The guys that I like came up with and I look up to, they had that mindset that bled over on me. And I credit my success that I've experienced thus far transitioning out. And then, before, while I was still in, to those guys. You are who you hang around with. And the guys that I came up with and deployed with were just some of the most phenomenal, people to ever walk this earth. And I feel like their mindset of never quit, go above and beyond, do the best you can, really rubbed off on me, and I credit them for that success.
Hey.
I also credit, and I didn't realize this until I was like transitioning out and like, starting to get some help for like PTSD. And I sat down with this Navy doc, and she's like, so what do you got going on in your life right now? And I was like, well, I'm retiring. I'm still on active duty. I'm doing real estate, and I'm finishing my business degree at USC. She's like, Jesus Christ. And she identified that was a symptom of my like PTSD, was that I constantly like keep my plate stacked with stuff to keep me going. I'm in this like perpetual state of like workup and deployment. And obviously I've used it to my benefit. But it gets to the point where I'll just crash, and I'll crash for a day or so, and then I'll be back on it. So I've had to try and find ways to like keep myself like level. And I do that through like, working out. I still work out in the morning, pump some steel. I'll go for a run, surf, surf therapy is a real thing for guys with PTSD. And that really helps keep me level. And I still talk to guys, meet new veterans like yourself.
Yeah.
And all those things keep me level. Meditation, like those kinds of things.
Do you find it difficult being separated from the community?
No, I'm still tied in. I donate to the Marine Recon Foundation.
Right.
I put on an event once a year at Ballast Point, in concert with Ballast Point for the Recon Foundation, when we raise some money for them. So I still stay like tied in. I still talk with guys that I served with, on a daily, guys that are struggling. I talk with them.
Nice.
But yeah, to answer your question, like on the civilian side, when I was transitioning into retirement, and then, well, I wouldn't say retirement, I just transitioned because I didn't really retire. I started working for a luxury real estate company who hires like top level performers. So it's really like the same kind of environment that I was in on active duty. Like all the agents that I work with are top notch, like number one in their areas, high performers, crushing multi-million dollar listings and millions of dollars of sales volume a year. So, I joined another environment where the bar is set super high for me to, learn my craft every day and try and get to that level.
Nice. Where could people find you? Who do you work for? If somebody wants assistance from you on purchasing a home, how could they go about getting connected with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Randall Sells San Diego. I've got a website, theparksteam.com. You can find me. I really enjoy that business on multiple aspects. One, because, I still get to help people. Like, buying a home is like a milestone in their life. And I get to help them navigate that complex process in a way that's professional. I'm honest with them. And I help them accomplish that goal. And on the other side, it's very entrepreneurial. Sky's the limit. You can go as far as you want to go with it. It's a very diverse industry. And, I get to be with my kids. I take my son to surf camp,
Nice.
Our surf club every Wednesday, and I have flexibility in my schedule. So
Yeah.
I really like that aspect of it.
Awesome.
And I really like not having a boss. I'm my own boss. Like after 20 years of listening to other people's crap, like I just want to do my own thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up, Randall. Any last words before we cut the tape?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight, for all the veterans out there, like, where I started from when I entered service and where I exited, I am two very different people. you know, and I didn't do anything special. All I did was take advantage of opportunities. When an opportunity knocked on my door, I answered the door. And the more you answer that door, the more you take advantage of opportunities, the more opportunities are going to come your way. And it's contagious and it's addictive. So just answer the door. That's all you got to do. You know, I was a C/B student in high school, and I finished business school with like a B+ average, like because I put forth the effort, I took advantage of the opportunities. So that's my message to any veteran that's transitioning out is you are worth more than you think. And you just get out there and do the same things that made you successful in the military, and you translate those into the civilian world. It's not a fair race. It's just not.
Awesome.
Take advantage.
Thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. Thanks.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more.